The summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I took an 8-week job working on a cattle ranch in Colorado. Okay, let me break this down for you. 1, I had never been on a plane before. 2, I was moving 1,126 miles from home. I'd grown up in the same small town as my entire family, all my friends. My parents, they'd only ever lived in the same small town. They actually went to school with all of my friends' parents. I had actually never known anyone to leave our town. When I got picked up at the airport in Colorado, I felt so uncomfortable. When I got to the ranch, it was clear that I was the outsider. Everyone knew each other and they had been working together for a while, and I felt so awkward and worried that I would mess up and be judged. I had only known one town and one group of people for my entire life. Now, you may have never moved to a new town, but you might relate to how I felt. When you first started high school, it's really easy to have that new kid syndrome. You might know some of the kids that moved up with you from middle school, but there are always so many people you don't know. Remember the first time you ever came to church and you got introduced to your group? It's like when we walk into a new space, it's easy to feel like the new kid. It's easy to begin to feel uncomfortable, wondering if you're going to fit in. Hopefully, after a few weeks, you start to feel a little bit more comfortable and able to interact with the people around you. But sometimes it's easy for us to wonder if we never showed up, would anyone even notice? I think we've all wondered that before. Does it even matter if I'm here? Does anyone care what I think? Does anyone even notice what I have to say? Sure, there are times when we feel like the center of the universe, or we feel like we should be the center of the universe, okay? The world should revolve around us. Like if we need a ride to practice, then everyone should stop what they're doing and make it happen. If we're gluten-free, then the birthday cake at our friend's party, it should be gluten-free. If we're honest, it's easy to feel like we're the center of the universe. But then there are times when it feels like nobody notices us at all. Maybe you look around that friend's party, the friend who you had to be there for, but they haven't even said a word to you. You're at the party because you had to be there, but then no one even notices if you slip out the back door. Maybe your parents won't stop bragging about your sister's SAT scores or your brother's touchdowns, but you don't ever hear them telling anybody about you. It may not be your friends or family. It could be your crush, your coach, your teacher, or a combination of all those things. But when we don't feel seen or valued by the people in our lives, it starts to make us feel like we don't matter. Whenever we feel overlooked or ignored, it's easy to become discouraged or feel numb or disengaged. If nobody's listening, why bother speaking? I mean, if nobody's paying attention, then does it even really matter what you do? When we feel like we don't matter, it takes the passion and excitement out of our lives. We don't feel like we're thriving in life, we're just surviving. And friends, nobody wants to feel that way. But it's more than that. It's possible that we have a lot of people in our lives telling us we matter. Caregivers or grandparents or coaches, but we don't believe them. There are caregivers, they're supposed to say that. There are coaches, they're trying to get the best performance from us. And so whether we hear this message a lot or whether we never hear this message at all, believing we matter is a lot harder than it looks. The good news is that today we're going to talk about someone who was very familiar with all the same feelings that we have. And what we could learn from her life could be a game changer for us. In this series, Love, we're talking about the events surrounding the story of Easter, the day we celebrate Jesus' resurrection when he came back from the dead. He showed the world that out of his love for us, he was stronger than death and that he's bigger and more loving than we could possibly imagine. We've been talking about people who encountered Jesus firsthand and how his love impacted them. Today, we're going to talk about a woman named Mary and her experience with Jesus before and after the resurrection. The first 4 books of the New Testament are accounts of Jesus' life by 4 different people. We call those books the Gospel. In those stories about Jesus' life, a woman named Mary Magdalene shows up pretty often. To be honest, there's a lot we don't know about Mary Magdalene, but one thing that we know for sure is that she was a committed follower of Jesus. In fact, her name is mentioned more than any other woman who wasn't in Jesus' family. Luke tells us that she traveled with Jesus and helped support his ministry financially. But what we also know is that historically, 2,000 years ago, in the area where they lived, women were ignored and overlooked. I think we can safely say that Mary felt like she didn't matter. The Gospel of John records that while it was still dark, Mary got up and went to the tomb, but when she got there, the stone that had been placed in front of the tomb was gone. Mary didn't immediately think, of course he's gone, Jesus is alive. No, she assumed that someone messed with the grave and took his body. She went straight to Peter and another disciple to tell them, and they ran to the tomb. Sure enough, Mary was right. The stone was gone, the body was gone, and all that was left was Jesus' grave clothes. John writes it this way: Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for?" Thinking he was a gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I am not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. On the day that Jesus defeated death, he made sure Mary was there to see it. That proved that God's love is bigger and stronger than anything else. And friends, that's a pretty big deal. In the first century, when Jesus lived, a woman was not given rights as a man. They were treated more as property and second-class citizens. Women weren't considered reliable. Her word was not to be trusted over a man's. And yet, over and over again in the Gospels, at the cross, at the tomb, and on Easter morning, it was a woman who saw Jesus first, who recognized him, and who was given the job of telling others. Jesus prioritized making sure Mary knew she mattered by trusting her with the greatest news of all, that he had risen. When the rest of the world saw women as less than, Jesus valued and elevated them. Think of it this way. All of my life, I've been collecting labels that made me feel like I don't matter. Some of those labels were given by others, and some of those labels I've given myself. Labels like calling myself fat, thinking that I'm a failure, thinking that I'm not enough. If you're honest with yourself, you've probably experienced the same thing. You're collecting all of these labels. But the love Jesus displayed on the cross and the power of the resurrection shows that I matter to God. God calls me Charlie, his daughter, someone who matters. Jesus knew Mary and called her by name. He chose her to be the first person to share the good news of the resurrection, which would demonstrate his love to the world. Even though the world may have told Mary that she didn't matter, Jesus communicated to her over and over again that she mattered and that he loved her. The same is true for us, friends. No matter what messages we may have been collecting from the world, because of the resurrection and the demonstration of his love poured out for us, we can take what Jesus says seriously. Think of it this way. Love lets people know they matter. See, just like Mary mattered to Jesus, so do you. He showed her that she mattered just like he showed other people who were overlooked or unseen. His love shows you that you matter too. Jesus died for me, and he died for you too. You have so much worth to him that he gave up his life for you. That's how much you matter. Jesus showed us his love for us through the cross and the resurrection. This Easter, that's the message I want you to take with you. You are seen, you are known, you are loved, and you are important. If we wonder if we can take Jesus seriously when he says that he loves us, Easter Sunday is a reminder that we can. You matter. The person next to you matters. When we live like that's true, our lives look so different. I want to give 2 invitations to you today. The first one is this. I want you to think about how you treat yourself and others. Ask yourself some questions. Do you believe that you matter? Do you treat yourself like you matter? Do you allow other people to treat you as if you don't matter? Do you treat others as if they matter? Are there people you treat like they matter more? Are there people you treat like they don't matter at all? Like, what would it look like to start loving yourself and others like Jesus did, like they matter starting today? The second thing I want you to think about is this. As you ask yourself these questions, I want to invite you to take a step. If you're noticing a pattern that's not good, honoring or loving, it may be time to talk to someone and ask them to pray with you. Ask them to pray that your heart will be healed in this area. Maybe today is the time that you get real and honest with your small group about how you feel about you. Maybe you've never put the trust of your life in Jesus and what He did for you out of love. I want to invite you to put your trust in Jesus for the first time today and tell your leaders, because this is something to celebrate. What would change in your life if you really believe that you matter to God? And because of that, the people around you matter as well. God loves you so much that God sent Jesus to die for you. If you put your faith in Jesus, you can spend forever with Him. This is what love looks like. Love lets people know that they matter. This week, when you talk to your group, I want you to think about what would change in your life if you really believe that God loves you and that you matter to Him.